Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the Cybermen, and my question to you is, what is your favorite Patrick Troughton Cybermen story? Now, recently we did a video talking about, what was your favorite Dalek story from the first Doctor, because he had 4 of them. Well, Troughton has 4 Cybermen stories. They're kind of his villain. So I thought I'd ask, what's your favorite Troughton Cyberman story, since he has 4 of them? This is a really tough one for me. I swear I've done this video before, but I think my answer might have changed. It's hard for me to pick between the moon base and the invasion. I think I would pick the invasion because they're both 2 of my favorite Cybermen stories, but a lot of the 60s Cybermen stories I think are some of the best. I feel like the 60s gets the Cybermen right better than any other decade of Doctor Who. It just feels like it nails them perfectly. The way the concept of the characters executed well, like the lack of emotions, and really showing that these things used to be human, and how this is kind of a danger of, hey, if we're not careful as a species, this could happen to us. But it also gets that sense of how dangerous they can be, how deadly they are, how manipulative they can be. That sometimes gets lost. Modern Doctor Who, for example, usually gets the Cybermen wrong. It makes them an army or a horde or somebody's helpers or somebody else's army. They've been the Master's army several times. They've been somebody else's army. They're used as basically soldiers. They don't get utilized well in modern Who. Now, the 2-parter that introduced them was really good, and The World Enough in Time and Dr. Fall's 2-parter was also really good, but most of the time, they're not executed well. The 70s, there's not a lot to go on. It's just Revenge of the Cybermen. Now, you guys know I personally love Revenge of the Cybermen. It's one of my favorite Cyberman stories. The Cybermen maybe are a little more emotional than usual in it, but not much. Not like they got into in the 80s. But that's really the only example we had for the 70s, and I like Revenge of the Cybermen. The 80s, they're a little too emotional. They're still good. I think all of the Cybermen stories in the 80s are good to one degree or another. What do we got? Three? What? Earthshock, Attack, Silver Nemesis? And I guess when they show up in 5 Doctors. Those are all good stories to one degree or another. I find in Silver Nemesis watchable. The one time I watched it, I enjoyed it. I need to rewatch it. But I feel like nobody gets them right the way the 60s do. I think that's just kind of the Cybermen's decade. With the only story I haven't seen, probably the only Cyberman story I haven't seen now is Wheel in Space, which I hear is the least popular of the 60s ones. But I feel like the invasion is probably objectively the best. I think it never drags. I think it fills out its 8 parts really, really well. And the fact that even though the Cybermen themselves don't really show up until halfway through it proves just how good of a story it is, because it has such a good reputation anyway. And it also helps out that we have 2 really good human villains in it with Vaughn and Packard. And both of them are very good in their own ways. Vaughn's really good as that evil genius type character, whereas Packard's that really good kind of right-hand man, the henchman, the number 1 henchman, so to speak. They both play those roles really well because, Kevin Stoney and the guy playing Packard both just do really good jobs in those roles. And so you have 2 very memorable human villains, and then the Cybermen are pulling strings the whole time, especially when you rewatch the story, and they're doing a good job pulling the strings. But I think the invasion, I don't think it would even be a contest that it would be Troughton's best Cyberman story if it wasn't for the fact that it's not complete. I feel like Tomb gets a lot of passes because it's complete. And Tomb is still good, don't get me wrong. I like Tomb. There's a lot of good things Tomb does. I love the speech between the Doctor and Victoria. I love the set design. I love the iconic scene of the Cybermen waking up. I love the fact that the hero of the story that saves him at the end of the day is a black man. I think that's really impressive for 60s Doctor Who, or just for 60s television in general, to have a black character that is the one who saves the day and keeps the Cybermen locked out at the end of the day. I think that's really impressive and a bit progressive. Now, I know his characterization in the show is a bit bothersome to some, and I get that. I'm certainly not trying to overlook that, how he's portrayed as a bit subservient and perhaps not as intelligent as the other people running around doing stuff. That's not lost on me. However, the fact that not only is Cybermen able to overcome the cyber programming, something not very many people in classic or modern who can do, he's able to overcome it. I actually think shows an intelligence and a strong will that he's able to override that programming. Then he saves the day by tossing the Cybermen around so they can all run out the door. And then he gives his life to close the door. I feel like that makes up for that he is pretty much the character that saves everyone at the end of the day by closing the doors, knowing it will kill him. I love that line at the end when he's like, the door is closed. I love that. I actually find that really impressive. Again, I'm not trying to overlook some of the portrayals, again, the subservientness and the fact that they portray him as perhaps not as intelligent as a lot of the scientists running around and as more of a physical laborer. I get that. That's not lost on me. But I feel like it makes up for him by giving him that heroic role at the end, and I will praise it for that. And again, I do like some of the Second Doctor in this, although the Second Doctor does cause some of the problems because he keeps opening all the doors for him. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. So I like Tomb. I think Tomb is good, but I feel like it gets more of a pass for being complete, where I feel like the moon base and the invasion would also get those kind of high praises if they were a little more complete. The moon base is a strong contender for me. It's hard for me to pick between the moon base and the invasion. I love the moon base. It's my favorite Troughton performance, so I would absolutely love it if it was complete. The animation for the missing episodes is really good, but I like it a lot. It does the base under siege thing to me even better than the 10th planet. Because, I mean, you're on the moon on one little base. Where can you go? Although the plugging the leaks with the backs of, like, the bags of sugar or whatever they are, that's pretty silly, I'll admit. But other than that, and I don't really like the Cyberman design, but I don't really care for them in Tomb either. The Invasion definitely has probably my favorite Cyberman design, the Invasion and Revenge of the Cybermen. I love those Cyberman helmets for sure. Those are my favorites. But I enjoy a lot of the dialogue in the moon base and a lot of the acting. And the fact that the chemical fluids can weaken the Cybermen, I actually enjoy that. But I would probably, again, say the Invasion, just because there's so much familiar about it when you go back and watch it. Because the Invasion is basically a Pertwee story with the Second Doctor. It's a Pertwee story before the Pertwee era, really. Much like how Robot is a Pertwee story, but it has the Fourth Doctor. The Invasion is a Pertwee story, but it has the Second Doctor. You know, all those key things are there. And of course, they used the Invasion as a testing ground to, hey, we might can turn, the show into this, which is what they did. The animation for the missing episodes in the Invasion is really good. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the story. I love it being the introduction of Benton. First time we see Benton. And this is also the first time the Brigadier comes back. So this is where he goes from being a one-off character to being a recurring character. And I really think this is where we really see him come into his own. I really liked him in Web of Fear here, but I really like him here when he's promoted up to the Brigadier. And to me, this is, sets a precedent for him to being a recurring character, so it makes it a lot easier to connect to him and spearhead. I love the location work of the episode. I like, again, the iconic shots of the Cybermen running around, and I'm guessing that's London. It's iconic for a reason. And I feel like the story works in black and white really well. So if I was to pick, I would definitely say the Invasion, although I haven't seen Will in Space, but I don't think I would pick Will in Space. I think all three of the others I've seen, Tomb, Moonbase, and Invasion, are good. But I think if I was placing them by order I like them, it would be, Invasion, just below it Moonbase, and a little below that Tomb of the Cybermen, for me personally. So I want to know what you think. What is your favorite Troughton Cyberman story and why? So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I am trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal for 2023. So I would certainly appreciate if you click that subscribe button and that thumbs up. That helps me out. I also have a Patreon that helps me keep bills paid, and you get access to early videos or early access to videos, outtakes, bloopers, full reactions, all that fun stuff. If you would like to check out my Patreon, there's a link to that in the description below. There's also a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly, and my P.O. box is down there as well. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.